Welcome to The Entertainer, where we interview artists from around the Northwest, Southwest Florida area. And we're here today with our special guest, a colleague of mine, one that's worked with me on many of my projects over the last 10 years, known as the Sax Man, Chad Conte. Welcome to the program,
Thank
Chad.
you. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Good. Chad is from the West Bradenton, Sarasota area, and he's gone to school here. He plays sax, he plays multi-instruments, and we're going to kind of get into that today. See what see what he's doing, see what he's up to, what he's been done in his life, and how he got started in the music business. And first thing we'd like to ask you, Chad, is how'd you get started playing music?
Well, I have an older brother, 4 years older than I am, and you know, just like anything, when you're growing up and you have older siblings, you want to follow in their footsteps. And you know, he had played athletics, and then I followed in his footsteps, and then he went to the Boy Scouts, I followed in his footsteps, and then he got involved in the band. And he started playing French horn, and he was very, very gifted at it. And so he had brought it home from school and was practicing, and I had an opportunity to play on it, and he said, "You sound like a dead cow." And it was real funny because a lot of people aren't aware that when you're playing the French horn and you're holding on to it, it's got 3 valves, and then it's got a thumb valve, and the instrument is in the key of E flat, but when you squeeze that thumb valve, it turns it into the key of B flat, which is what a trumpet and a cornet is in. So in the school, not only could he play French horn, but he could double as a trumpet player. And so he said, you know, why don't you try the trumpet out? And he brought a trumpet home from school and gave me an opportunity to play it. And I had just, you know, a load of fun. And so that's how I got involved playing instruments. My first instrument was the trumpet. And I've really, really enjoyed it, and had an older brother who was gifted enough as a brass player and kind of, you know, helped.
So you were kind of raised in
yes,
in the horn.
Mm-hmm.
In the horn business and your family and stuff. So about what age did you start to meddle around with it and play with it?
12 years old. I was in the 6th grade.
Trumpet, was it?
Trumpet, yeah. And here in Sarasota, the middle school had a program. Every 6 weeks, you would take a different class. So it'd be, you know, art, you know, 6 weeks, and then shop 6 weeks, and then, you know, we got to the music department. Sure. And then I was thrilled to be able to play trumpet. And then in the 7th grade, you had a choice of what you wanted to do the whole year.
So you learned how to read?
Learned how to read music in school, and trumpet is what I decided to do, and I really, really enjoyed it.
Wow. Wow. Who were some of your early influences on the trumpet?
Dizzy Gillespie, Miles Davis, Al Hurt, Herb Albert.
Tijuana Brass.
Yeah, Tijuana Brass.
Sure.
And my grandmother was a huge Al Hurt fan. So
yeah, we used to do that song "Rise."
Yes.
By Herb Albert. That was a great trumpet song. But you also play other instruments. You're known as the sax man, so you play the sax, obviously. What saxes do you play?
I primarily play the alto saxophone, that's this one right here, the soprano saxophone, which is, they're made 2 different ways. They're made with the curvature of the bell, but they also make them straight.
Kind of like the Kenny G.
Exactly, and so I play the straight soprano, and flute, harmonica, you know, the brass instruments, you know, the trumpet, flugelhorn, you know, and but primarily the alto, soprano sax, flute, trumpet, harmonica.
Well, you play tenor too, right?
I do play tenor saxophone. It's just not in my regular lineup of instruments in the live performance area. I do play a lot of tenor saxophone in the studio because it's got such a deep, rich
for harmonizing
sound. Yes.
Yeah, good. And you play harmonica as well?
Harmonica.
Right? Yeah, we've done some projects together where Chad has worked with me on many of my albums over the past 10 years, I'd say 9 or 10 years. And I brought him in, and he's played harmonica and different saxes and done solos. He's known as a soloist, which most horn players are. And so when did you start getting serious and that you wanted to play music? I mean,
Well,
when you were young.
going back to the 7th grade when I got a chance to play the trumpet for the entire year and my brother was helping me along, he had borrowed a friend's trumpet from school, so he and I were playing duets in the afternoon every day after school, and I loved it. I mean, we were playing all sorts of contemporary music like Isn't She Lovely, all the way to classical music, and I had a lot of duet books for classical music, and it really hit home. I really enjoyed it. I told my brother, I said, something, inside, I think it's God telling me that this is what I'm meant to do for the rest of my life, is be a horn player. I really connected with it, and I enjoyed.
Well, I would think that as a horn player, different than a guitar player or somebody else, bass player or something, more or less orchestration seems to be, you start out as playing with other people.
Right.
In other words, getting the different horns. You may play with 4 or 5 different other horn players, and you got to come up with 7ths and 9ths and 13ths and things that where normal people wouldn't do.
Sure.
And so, and then plus you're a soloist. When did you when you were early in your career, when did you want to go into entertaining, or possibly maybe getting in a band or playing out somewhere?
There were multiple moments that really touched home with me when I was young and in school. Middle school has stage band, and if you're good, then the band director will sometimes have a group of the elite musicians put together a little, they call stage band, and it's just, it's a jazz band with a little bit of showmanship to it.
Right.
And those songs were, peppy and fun and out of the.
So that catapulted you into the stage,
exactly.
Or wanted to play out.
And then when I went into high school, I got involved not only in marching band and orchestra, but I was involved in jazz band there as well. Excuse me. And when I had gotten involved in the jazz band, I was really excited about the kind of music we were playing, the different sounds compared to,
and the timings as well. Sure.
Compared to what I was playing in normal school sessions, the classical music that they teach.
Sure.
And it gave me an opportunity to listen and perform music that really touched me outside of just a normal element of what is taught in school.
So I would imagine you spent many hours in your room.
Oh yeah,
running scales and playing licks,
noodling around as much as I could. And I come from a family of
where they were used to it.
Well, there's a lot of artists in my family. My father plays guitar. My uncle plays guitar. My grandfather played guitar. A couple of them played flute, and so I had come from a family that definitely loved to sing and play instruments. And we would sing and perform as a family, in the living room and everything.
So what was it like playing your first gigs out on a stage at a club somewhere? And what was that like early when you first started out?
Well, it was exciting. It was very exciting to.
You were still perfecting your craft.
Exactly. It was very exciting as a kid to get recognition for my talent when performing in jazz band at a concert. It was a completely different animal when I got paid for it.
Sure.
And I'll never forget that I had an opportunity to put together a little jazz combo and go out and perform a local venue when I was in high school. And so I put together, it was a 5-piece jazz band, me and another horn player and a rhythm section. And we went out and played in the afternoon for some people and got paid pretty well to do it. And I was looking at the money and it hit me right away. Wow, this is more money than I've made working all week long bagging groceries, because I was working at the local grocery store. And I went, bright idea. I need to go get some shows, go get some pickups and gigs.
And then when the girls come around,
that's a bonus.
It's the benefit.
Right, and so I was very, very excited, and I asked the guys in the band, I said, hey, I don't know about you, but not only do I have fun doing this, but we're now getting paid to do it. Do you guys want to do this
And
more?
the girls are looking at me.
And the girls are looking, and everybody in the band went, sign us up. So, you know, around my junior year in high school is when I started really getting a lot of shows for my group. And we were happy. I quit the grocery store job. A couple of the other kids quit their jobs, and we were.
So you learned how to work a PA and all that type of stuff, monitor systems and all that
and
stuff.
And at that point, we were trying to keep things very simple. We were the format that we were playing were jazz standards. A lot of the songs that were being played in the
Well, who were
40s.
your earliest influences, like on the saxophone and stuff like that? Who would,
Well-
what did you listen to and try to copy and stuff?
I listened to a lot of Grover Washington Jr. when I was younger, and I really enjoyed his playing. And of course, you know,
Now, was he an alto player?
he played all the saxophones, alto, tenor, and soprano saxophone, and he's got hit songs with each one of them.
Oh, cool.
Very, very versatile, you know, saxophonist, and
Yeah, I liked him a lot in the R&B field. You know,
yeah.
that's where I would listen to him at, is through the R&B genre and stuff. He was on there. But what others were you influenced by?
when I had, you know, again, I was playing trumpet all through school, and I was listening, you know, like Dizzy Gillespie and Al Hurt, and listening to all these great trumpet players, and going, you know, they all have their own styles. And of course, I love listening to Maynard Ferguson, who was one of those screechers playing, you know, super high notes. But you know, when I started listening to the saxophone, it sounded like someone was talking through their instrument.
Or
Or singing, and
Sure.
I really connected with that and went, wow, this is definitely what I want to do. I just want to be able to take what they're doing on saxophone and apply it to the trumpet.
Sure. Yeah, it's been said all through my lifetime that the sax is probably the most favorite instrument, you know, as far as people wanting to listen to, next to a singer.
Right.
You know, and so, but then, you know, you're a solo artist, so you're up there where the singer is,
Sure.
normally, with playing solos and stuff like that. So you got to play out in your early 20s and stuff like that, and play out in clubs and perfect your craft a little bit. What was your learning period like? I mean, when did you really start to feel like you were really gaining and learning and stuff? How old were you?
Yeah, high school. I was in high school, 14, 15 years old. You know, when I told my brother that I was meant to be a horn player, I really thought it was going to be trumpet for the rest of my life.
So did you get into any horn bands like Chicago or
yeah.
Blood, Sweat and Tears or anything
absolutely.
pop-wise like that?
I enjoyed listening to
A lot of
them.
the R&B guys,
But I was still
Earth, Wind and Fire and things like that.
I was still, you know, as much as I enjoyed them and I listened to all their music, I really listened with intensity to the solo artists, kind of like just Grover Washington, just focusing on him and the horn, and wanting to do that so badly, but not quite able to get over that hump on trumpet. You know, everything at that point was sheet music. You know, in high school, everything is on the paper, and all of the guys I was listening to, everything that they were playing was coming out of their head. Everything was off the cuff and improvising, and I hadn't quite gotten to that level yet. But my brother said, you know, it's real simple. If this is what you want to do for a living, by the time you get into high school, because I was in the 8th grade and he was a senior in high school. He said, you know what we're playing in high school. You've played he brought the sheet music home. He worked with me on the parts. I idolized some of the trumpet players at the school. And he said, you know, when you get into high school, you need to be playing at a college level. And then that way, when you go to college, you're already playing at a professional level. You're already out in the marketplace.
So when you get out of college and basically like that, around your mid-20s,
right,
you were making a living at it?
Well, no, not yet. In fact, later in my teen years, actually in high school, I was performing with quite a few of the local bands here in Sarasota in the nightclubs, and had a pretty good reputation as a trumpet player. And you know, I was really excited about the fact that I was already working as a professional with local professionals that were doing it for a living. And when I got out of school and went to college, I was playing a few gigs here and there, but it was never enough money to make a living at. So I became, discouraged about that fact, and I wound up getting a job, multiple jobs here and there to pay the bills, and I wound up falling into the bank business. And that taught me how to handle finances, how to market yourself.
So how long did your work period last?
Work period
before you started getting into the music?
It lasted for about 7-8 years, and just enough of the financing and insurance to really understand how to run a business and how to be self-employed.
So in your early 30s is when you decided to do this thing
I fell into it by accident. The whole time I was working at the bank, I came home every day and played my horns, and I was teaching myself the saxophone and the flute and the harmonica, learning all of these other instruments for fun. And someone, I believe I was 27, 26, 27-ish, and I got asked to do a pickup show. Someone had double booked themselves. It was a friend of mine, and I wound up performing, and then they hired me for the house band that night. And that was, 19 years ago,
Wow.
18, 19
Wow.
years ago. And ever since then, it's been full-time music, and hasn't stopped.
Well, we're going to get into more of that here. We're going to take a short pause here and take a break, and we'll be right back. You're watching The Entertainer, where we interview established artists here on the Southwest Florida area. And today we got with us our special guest recording artist, Chad Conte, who's going to be with us. He's told us how he's grown up with music, how he got started and got on stage and started playing. Now we're going to get into more serious stuff about recording and about professionally his career now and where he's gone and where he's been and where he's heading. So we'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching The Entertainer here on the K&B Network. I'm your host, Eddie Garrett, and we're here with Southwest Florida's the sax band, Chad Conte. Welcome back, Chad.
Thank you.
We've been talking about how he got started as in playing the horns, and he started out being a trumpet player in school, and he went on to play on stage and play in bands and stuff, and in his early 30s he decided to quit his banking and get into music full time, and so that's where we want to go now in our conversation. What made you make the transition to from banking to go into the music business? Because that's kind of a hard decision to make.
Good question. It was all by happenstance. I mean, I was in a bar singing karaoke, ran into some other musicians, and they said, "Hey, let's form together a band and go out and just for the fun of it." And
Sure.
It turned into more than fun. It turned into regular, steady work that was paying good money. And
You were playing all the top covers around.
exactly.
And stuff
So
like that.
it was like, wait a minute, when I really wanted to do it for a living, it wasn't happening. And now, since I'm not forcing it, it just came very natural. It just the ball started rolling, and I was very happy about
Well,
it.
I know that I run into you about 9 or 10 years ago, and I was doing an album and decided to put horns on my album. Usually before, if I had horns, I had done them myself on the keyboard, but I wanted a real horn player to come in, and so someone gave me Chad's phone number, and Chad was on on that album. I think it started in 2009, I think it was. but we did it in 2008 as far as recording. So when did you go into recording? When did you decide to break into that somewhat? Because you went from the school to the banking,
right,
to the music full time on stage and playing in bands. And how'd you get involved with studio work?
I was writing music, the whole time I was in the banking business, and since it was a creative outlet, music. All the way around, live performance was included, performing with other people out, doing Christmas shows,
Sure.
and playing at the church, and I was kind of involved any and everywhere I could be to play music at, and so I remember that I had.
So you were vigilant, persistent.
Wrote a bunch of music, and did it, and had a keyboard that was also a workstation. So it allowed me to lay down all the individual parts, the bass line and the drums and the keyboard parts. And so I was building these songs, and then I released an album to my family that was called Electric Creations. So it was all my songs.
So did you do it at home?
I did it at home, and I did it on the keyboard. I didn't even play the horns. And that's why it was called Electric Creations. So my family could at least hear my music even though I wasn't playing the horns. And then the next year, I released an album called Electric to Life. So it was a lot of the same songs, but I got an opportunity to play my horns in the studio.
Cool.
And I got a chance to add a few songs, but it was all live at that point. And,
that started your recording
that's
mentality,
right.
I mean, hey.
As far as myself, I had already recorded
Right.
on other people's albums in the studio, but I'd never done it for myself.
Well, we know that there was the experience you had from going from the school band
Right.
to the stage and playing in pop bands, so to speak, jazz. You said you started
Right.
out with, and then went into more of the pop music and stuff, and started doing it for a living in your early 30s. And there's the difference between going from the school band to the stage and playing
Sure.
pop music. What was it like going from the stage live and then going into a boring studio?
It was a very, very big change for me. I had realized that if I was going to get that passion and expressiveness in my music to transcend to people's ears and hearts, that I was going to have to create energy inside the studio without having that live audience there to give me the energy. And so at first, when I was recording a lot, it was my eyes were closed and I'm focusing on
what you're doing.
Exactly, hoping, just pretending that the audience is there and that they're just hanging on to every note that I'm playing. And then over a period of time, longer in the studio, then it just became very natural to create.
Yeah, you kind of go from an amateur state to what we call the professional state. The amateur state, you're still trying to progress yourself in the music. You're trying out a lot of different genres. You're playing in a lot of different bands and a lot of experiences with clubs and things like that, and with people out in the audience and things. But the studio, to try to capture something live in the studio is very difficult, and a lot of musicians have trouble duplicating that.
No.
And what's your theory or your experience as far as trying to capture that live, where everybody's there, there's a lot of stimuli going on, you're
Right.
excited. How do you transcend that into the studio and getting that on record? Because you want people to feel that way if they were at a party,
Sure.
put on your CD and put on your music, and you got to be at that level in the studio. I mean,
People, my experience is that when people are in the recording studio, they're trying to focus on playing without any mistakes and playing their best runs or their best lines and trying to make it as smooth and flawless as possible. Well, when you're in front of a live audience, you're not focused on that. You're focused on being flashy and impressing the audience, right then and
yeah, it's
there.
all improv, basically.
Right. So if, when I go into the studio, that is the mentality that I have. I'm focused and I'm playing as if I'm on a live stage performing for a live audience.
Sure.
Instead of I need to play my best runs possible and need to do it without making any mistakes.
Well, I've had a couple experiences myself, Chad. I was working with this one band that had a girl singer, and she was dynamite. I mean, we did all the songs that were popular out at the time, Michael Jackson, a bunch of other stuff, and a lot of R&B, you know. And I took her into the studio. She's a fabulous singer, had great showmanship. Took her in the studio, she froze. You know, she had her headphones on, and it was time to record, and she froze. And for hours, I was trying to get her, and it was a simple line to sing.
Right.
I mean, she could do it. I knew she could do it because I played with her 7 nights a week. And so she was a professional singer, but the studio freaked her out.
Right.
A stage fright type of thing. And that happened one other time with a guy. I took another guy in, and he was a horn player. And he could play live. I mean, he just, you know, I took him in the studio, and he froze. He couldn't come up with anything.
Yeah, it happens pretty
And
frequently.
he just he totally freaked out, and so there's the difference between the stage and the studio. And people have got to learn, artists have got to learn, I guess you would agree, that you've got to be able to capture your best at a time that you don't, you know, you don't have a second chance or whatever. It's you got to make it or not. And so when I see these people's music, I want to be able to see if they can capture that.
Right.
And what's been your experience with that as well? I mean, that's going from amateur to professional, right? When you could just turn the light switch on and blow a killer solo, and instead of working hours.
Oh, I
with somebody.
I remember hours and hours and hours of being in the studio and struggling with that myself.
Doing it again. Let's do it again.
Right.
Yeah.
And you know, your track record and the time that you spend in the studio, that's, in my opinion, that's the only way you get around it. Just like being on a stage performing live for people and getting over stage fright. You do it and you do it and you do it, and eventually, eventually it'll go away. You'll get past that mark, but you've got to put in your time. And you know, there have been many solos on my part, as well as other musicians that I've heard, and full bands that have played what sounds like a mistake or a little, you know, something that a little off, and it winds up being extremely dynamic when you look at it objectively.
Sure.
And sometimes makes hit songs for that reason.
Sure.
And you know, like from what I found out, you know, Inagata Davida was supposed to be in the Garden of Eden.
Right.
And it wound up being a hit song.
Sure.
Called something else because the lead singer could not articulate those words properly.
Well, you know, when I hooked up with Chad 9 or 10 years ago and brought him in on a session, I like melodic players, somebody that plays with style, someone that plays melodically, someone that builds a solo, someone that doesn't just start out running scales and seeing how fast they can run those scales and this and that. I kind of like someone to build a solo. So when I called Chad in, it was a great experience. He right off the bat, I mean, I wanted him to do a three-part horn section on a tune I had, and he whipped it right out. And then when it came to the solo or two I had him on the song, he just literally did exactly what I wanted him to do. And he's been on probably a lot of my projects. You can go on eddiegarrett.com and hear some of my last tunes that Chad's on, and actually you go to youtube.com and type in my name, Eddie Garrett, and you'll get a lot of videos with Chad on there as well, him playing all sorts of instruments. And so if you want to see that, but the emotional, the simplistic, we used to use the old KISS word,
Right,
keep
it simple.
stupid, yeah. And I think that in my professional opinion and my years of experience, it takes a while to develop into being like that, to being a melodic player. When I started out on guitar, I wanted to just wail all the time.
Sure.
Scream and wail, a lot of high notes and this and that. But how was that transition for you to like come out of that and to be more melodic and let the song kind of play itself and you play with the song? When did that happen?
My early 20s. You know, going back to high school, when I was listening to Maynard Ferguson, you know, the screeching trumpet, I was playing trumpet solos in the marching band on Friday night, you know, in front of everybody in the bleachers. So I want to impress them, and I want to be able to have that solo carry, and it's all about flash, you know, and high notes. And then as I got older and I'm listening to these fabulous R&B artists like Grover Washington Jr., I realized it's not about high notes, it's not about flash, it's about
feeling.
It's completely about feeling and emotion. And the best way that I describe it to people is that a melodic artist is got a blank canvas like a painter, and they're holding their palette in their hand. It's got all the colors of the rainbow, and they're not thinking about using more of this color than anything else. If they're painting a landscape with blue skies and white clouds and green grass,
they just go with the flow.
They go with the flow.
Sure.
And they focus on giving the most beautiful, vibrant, rich colored painting they can, instead of what will impress people.
Sure.
It's, you know, and when you're focused on creating an extremely beautiful melody line in your solo, sometimes that's just holding a note for a little bit longer. That's not running a bunch of scales or being flashy, but it's holding a note with a little bit of texture to it. Like,
well, you're playing what the song calls for,
right.
actually. I mean, musically, you're subliminally, if you will. You're, you know, you let the song kind of play you. You know what I mean? And like when I started to tour into my solos, my guitar solos and keyboard solos, it became more of, instead of me playing along with the song, I let the song play me.
Right.
You know, I think
same thing with writing too. You know?
Yes.
The song writes itself, and you're just the conduit.
Sure. Now, you said you've done some writing yourself?
Yeah, I write all different styles of music, you know, from smooth jazz to reggae, a little bit of pop, R&B, rock and roll, blues, any and everything. And having the different instrumentation to go with those genres of music help to enhance the song, and it helps to keep me growing as an artist musically all the way around. I'm not someone who likes to just play one style of music. I enjoy music, all styles. And
cool. Well, you can see Chad anywhere on the southwest Florida coast, Tampa, Sarasota, Venice, Fort Myers, in between those areas. You catch Chad playing in a lot of the clubs. He's playing in a couple, 3 different bands that he plays with, different artists you play with, but you're mainly with this guy by the name of George DeJong, who was the keyboard player for Peter Noonan of the Herman's Hermits.
Yes.
Is that correct? And so you are working with George now for a bunch of years, but you've also had some other people. You've worked with the singer of the Platters, you said?
He and I work.
What's his name?
Lanza Bartlett. And Lanza got off world tour about 7 years ago and lives in Cape Coral, Florida. And you know, still flies around the world and does Platter shows here and there. And so I get to work with, you know, a Hall of Fame singer from the Platters, and you know, a multi-instrumentalist from Herman's Hermits, and you know, a few other musicians.
You've also had a thing with Henry Lawrence, am I correct?
Yes, Henry Lawrence.
That's the football player of the Tampa Bay Bucks?
No, he was with the Oakland Raiders.
Oh, Oakland Raiders.
3-time Super Bowl
He's from this area.
But was born and raised in Palmetto, Florida, and went to Palmetto High School. So he's a native, just like myself.
Right.
So you know,
and he's a singer as well. So he's worked with you somewhat as well, right?
Yeah, he's a gospel singer, and done quite a few shows with them, and a lot of headlining shows. You know, like the Shark Tooth Festival or
Sure.
you know things of that nature. And when
So basically you're working as a trio most of the time, and sometimes just the duo with you and George. George plays keyboards,
Right.
And, you guys use a drum machine, and
Right.
he plays the bass with his left
but
hand.
we also get calls throughout the year to have a full band, and you know we'll use other people for the rhythm section. But yeah, I do a lot of duo and trio work. I also do a lot of work as a soloist too, where I have songs that have been sequenced or created that sounds like what you would hear on the radio, except it excludes the lead singer part. And
So backing tracks.
right.
basically.
So when I'm out performing, you know, I play a little bit of keyboard, and I'm a front man, so I sing, and so I'll play everything from Jimmy Buffett, Bob Marley to Earth, Wind and Fire.
Sure, I've heard your act.
And you know, go and perform right at the table. You know, I have wireless microphones, so I can walk out to the audience and perform and solo right at the tables for the people. And I enjoy.
So that's what you're doing right now. You're working as a duo, a trio, work with band on occasion, stuff like that. Plus, you're still recording. I know you're doing some with me. We had just did an album 2016, Cutting Loose, and Chad's on it. So if you want to hear any of him on there, you can go on my website, eddiegarrett.com, or go on YouTube and type in Eddie Garrett. You can see Chad on a lot of videos that we've done there, stuff we've done together, originals, and then some cover tunes as well. But so that's what you're doing now. You're working full time, I take it. This
Yes.
is what you do for a living.
Yeah, I'm going into my 19th year full time. And as a matter of fact, yesterday I did a solo show, and you know, I really enjoy each group has you know, the things that I really enjoy about it. Obviously, when I work with George and Lanza, I'm enjoying their skill set, and you know, to work with a Hall of Fame singer is, you know, it's pretty
So
spectacular.
did you, as a musician, we know sometimes it happens in the entertainment business, that people get into the alcohol and get into drugs and kind of get into shadier
Unfortunately.
things like that. Did you ever get involved in that, go through a period
Yeah.
of that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, tell us about that.
You know, I had struggled with drugs when I had first gotten into the music business, and I realized very quickly that it's not something that I needed to stick with, or I was never going to go anywhere as a musician. Never struggled with alcohol. I have worked with a lot of musicians who, you know, felt this need to drink in order for it to loosen up their vocals. You know, I need a glass of wine, I need a couple beers.
There's always the excuse.
Always the excuse, and you know, I realized if you go down that road, you're taking away your tools for success, and you're not, you know, would a banker show up and drink in the office? No. So, you know, when I come to the office to perform, I'm not drinking or using
So you were a
drugs.
little more disciplined than maybe I was, and some of my friends who got had a problem with alcohol for about 5 years, and been kind of free for the past year and stuff. So I'm doing a lot better there. But a lot of my friends have had issues with drugs and alcohol, so just wanted to run that by you, since that wasn't a big thing in your life except early on,
Right.
you know, and stuff. But what's your plans for the future? I mean, where do you plan on taking this? You're in your 40s, I take it.
I'm in my early 40s.
Where do you plan on, or where would you like to go, or
Well,
or is your mind just on making a living at this point?
right now it's been on just making a living, but you know, the last few years I've had an opportunity to write some really fabulous music, individually as well as collectively.
Sure.
With musician friends that I work with, and some of the music that has come out here within the past couple of years has been pretty exceptional, and I'm just so elated and thrilled to have these songs.
Got them all inside. You got to get them out, right?
And now it's, you know, it's gotta get them recorded, gotta get them on, you know, available to the public so people can listen. And you know, like we were just talking earlier, music writes itself so many times, and we're just a conduit.
Sure.
And you know, I'm really enjoying just getting it recorded and getting it available, because I can look back and think to myself, at least I got it done. Because a lot of artists don't even get around to that fact.
Sure.
And so as far as the big dreams of traveling the world, and you know, those have gone away. I've got an opportunity
Sure.
to do a couple tours in the Midwest, and I've performed on many of private islands, and you know, some
But if a
very
big
high
opportunity
profile.
came your way, you're not going to turn it down. Sure.
Absolutely. But right now, you know, living in Southwest sunny Florida, it's
And
gorgeous.
making a living with something you love to do.
Mhm.
You know, it's
I'm-
better than
I'm very
doing
successful
something you
at
don't
what I
want to
do.
do.
I get to do what I want. I get to play the music that I want. And one of the things that working with George, he was extremely insightful.
That's George DeJong.
George DeJong.
Herman
Yeah.
Hermits, yeah.
And George had told me a few years ago. He said, you know, one of the things that I want you to realize, Chad, is that when you're working with Herman's Hermits, the best you'll ever be is number 2. And that dawned on me. Good point. I could be touring the world, playing with some, you know, internationally recognized group,
Right.
playing their music, and no matter how good I am as an artist, I'll only be number 2 or even lower on the totem pole.
Sure.
But here, on a local level, I'm highly successful.
Sure.
From the position that I'm in, and I get to play my music and market myself the way I see fit, and work with anybody that I want to work with. And I get to work with some very high-profile people, you included.
Sure.
And that right there beats anything else. I get, you know, and I'm close to my family. You know, I get to.
Sure.
I've got all of these future plans at my fingertips, and I get to decide which road that I want to take. So I'm very excited about what the future holds, because I've made some big changes in my life here recently, and I'm just very excited about where I've been.
So you've been doing this now professionally, will you say, for 19 years? You've
Yeah,
been doing this for 19 years?
I'm into my 19th year.
Yeah, and so what advice would you give young guys or girls that want to play horn and get started in the music business? What advice would you give them?
One, don't give up. Playing music as a horn player is kind of like, in my opinion, like playing a video game. When you beat level 2, you're so enthusiastic about playing it
Sure.
that you're dying to beat level number 3, and then 4 and 5 and 6. It's the same thing with getting good at your craft on your instrument. You know, you have a couple small lines that you do really well, and then that progresses into something else, into
Sure.
something else. And then over time, you've got multiple nights worth of song materials, and
Oh, sure.
you've met plenty of people. You're working with tons of different people. You're networking.
Oh, you jammed
Don't
1,000 hours.
Yeah.
Or
Don't limit
multi-thousand
yourself to
hours.
one style. You know, because when you limit yourself, you're pigeonholed. So if you only do reggae music, then most likely you're only going to get a call to perform reggae music, which
Right.
limits you from doing the, I'll just say, the cocktail hour at the local swanky Dolphin Country Club. Well, the cocktail hour is something I enjoy because I get to do lots of Frank Sinatra and Nat King Cole and Duke Ellington and stuff that takes me back to my roots of jazz. And you know, and if you only do reggae music, you're going to get a lot of calls to perform outside by the pool.
Right.
And you know, and it's gorgeous outside by the pool, but what about all the rainy days? You know, so I enjoy performing all different styles of music, and that includes, you know, the St. Patrick's Day music. I really enjoy because it's fresh, it's new, it's exciting.
Yes.
And each style of music has a deep, rich cultural history on where the music came from and why it became the way it did and where it
Why it's
transitions.
sustained longevity as well.
Exactly.
Sure.
And so, you know, I tell people, don't give up. don't let musicians who are adults dictate to you what you can and can't do in the music business.
Or discourage you, in other words.
I had
It's easy to be discouraged when you're learning something, or you're growing in your infancy and stuff in your instrument and so on. I've noticed that a lot, and I've told people to just beware of the critics.
Oh, sure.
Know that they're out there.
Oh, yeah.
There's going to be people that don't like you, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Regardless of what you do and how good you are.
That's it.
They may just not like the shirt you're wearing, and they've got their whole
But that
mind
can
made up.
discourage someone,
Sure.
you know, and so I've been there, you've been there many times, and you need not to get discouraged, but just persevere and go on and work through it, and not let that be your main focus. But music is something that you feel, and I noticed with you working with me in the studio on a lot of my tunes, plus we've done a lot of live shows together, you know, with bands and things like that, and CD release parties and so on that we've done together. But Chad's the type of player that he's a showman, he's an entertainer, he doesn't stand in one spot, he moves around, he's very animated in that sense, and he's a very good showman. He plays a lot of instruments, so when you go and hear him live, you'll hear him play the different saxes and how they sound different. You'll hear the flute, you'll hear a harmonica, and a lot of other things. I mean, he plays a lot of percussion instruments and things like that. So when you work with Chad and you stand next to him, he has a presence about him, and it's very professional, and he takes you up a notch or two in your playing and makes you play better. A lot of my albums I considered were very good because I was fortunate enough to have you play on them, and I'm very proud of our music. I'm very proud of the work we've done together, Chad.
Me too. Me too.
And I hope there'll be a lot more times.
Oh, me as well. Absolutely. I look at the music that we have created as like a fine wine. It just gets better with age, and that's what, you know. I really, really enjoy working with you, and I've enjoyed all the music that we've recorded.
Yes, you have done a great job. And so, as we conclude this interview with the sax man, Chad Conte, remember you can even go on YouTube and type in Chad Conte, and you'll get a lot of different videos of Chad on there as well. I mean, he's got a lot of videos of himself doing a single act, the duo act with George DeJong, the keyboard player for the Herman Hermits, and the singer from the Platters. What's his name again?
Lonzo Bartlett.
Lonzo Bartlett. And you could hear him with Henry Lawrence and see him with me as well. You know, I'm on some of his videos. And so you want to go watch Chad, look in your newspapers and find out where he's playing at. Is there any contact information? Do you have an email or anything like that? Someone could email you and ask where you're playing at, or
absolutely.
Or do you mind giving that out?
No, I don't.
Viewers?
Actually, it's pretty simple. It's Chad, C-H-A-D, S as in Sam, T as in Tom, R as in Ralph, the number 8, then U-P. So it should read Chad straight up at AOL.com.
Say it again.
Chad straight up. C-H-A-D-S-T-R, the number 8, U-P. Chad straight up.
Good, good. So we'll be watching out for Chad and keeping up with him. And you've been watching The Entertainer, the show that interviews local established artists from the Southwest Florida area. I've been your host, Eddie Garrett, and it's been a pleasure that Chad's been here. We're going to let him sign off with a little sax playing here in D minor. And so, see you again next time on The Entertainer. And thank you, Chad, the sax man.
Thank you,
Conte.
Eddie Garrett, I appreciate it.
Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you.
What? I'll just sit down.
Here, let me grab my strap.
Oh. Chad Conte, ladies and gentlemen. until next time, ladies and gentlemen, the entertainer. We'll see you next time. God bless.